So look, we're starting a brand new series today, and it's called Q&A. Now, we've done series like these multiple times, and basically, here's the heart behind these series, Q&A type series. We actually send surveys out to our church, which is you guys, and at all of our locations, and we ask them, ask any question that you want to ask, right? About faith, about the Bible, about all these things, and we take those questions and we try to formulate a big idea out of those to answer those here on a Sunday morning. So that's kind of the heart behind Q&A. You created the content for it by your questions. Now, we're not going to talk about aliens today. I know a lot of you have been wanting to talk about that. Just kidding. So again, that's the heart of our series. Today is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, you see a couple chairs behind me and a couch. And so we're going to have some people come up. We're going to do a little panel today. And so it'll be a little different. Now, I will say this, not every question that is submitted to us are we able to actually answer it, obviously, because we could be up here all day and you have all kind of different questions. And so if you submitted a question and it doesn't get answered, I'm sorry. Hopefully you'll get some help today. But I want to talk about the question that actually was some of you asked, and it's this: what does doing life together actually mean? Now, when you hear the term doing life together, I would call it a church buzzword, right? Man, we're doing life together. Man, let's do life together. And when I think about people who are asking these questions, I think about different personality types. We can call them avatars, different types of people. So I don't know, and this is just kind of fun when I'm reading questions. I don't know what type of person asked this question. It could be somebody who's highly sarcastic, with a touch of skepticism, you know what I mean? Who says, yeah, what does doing life actually really mean? Pfft, I heard that question. I hear that all the time, doing life together. Okay, let's get real, right? And then you can have another person that says, I hear this question about I hear people talk about it. I see it on social media. Maybe I heard a preacher talk about it. Maybe I heard something like that in small group, do life together. I'm really interested in what doing life together actually means. So I don't know, that's two extremes there. I would probably be the one over here, highly sarcastic, touch of skepticism. Anyways, we really want to try to unpack this question for you today, but let's get honest. The phrase is used a lot, do life together, right? Let's do life together. And I think that as people, depending upon what your vantage point is, we have different expectations around this. As a community of people. I've noticed this over, years of being in the local church now, 25 years. I have noticed that for whatever reason, we put on certain lenses when we come into a church setting, right? Like if we're out on the pickleball court, man, we're letting it rip, right? But when we get into the church, all of a sudden we're just, we're a little more polished, we're all that, and we look at people a little bit different, but the same people that was out there playing pickleball is the same people that are in here, right? And so the church is no different, but for whatever reason, we have cognitive biases that we put on when we come into an environment like this. And so we're trying to create some real raw answers. And we're also, as a church and through the pastoral leadership, we're trying to create an environment, our culture in our church that's just real people, right? Not polished professionals, just real people. And I hope that we're able to show that throughout these series. But talking about this question, what does doing life together actually mean? And like I said, it's a confusing topic because people have different ideas. And before I really get into this and our panelists come up, I really want to mention a few of those extremes because there are some extremes around the concept of doing life together. And I think these extremes creates a common trap for us as people. Like I said, when we come into the church, we have these ideas and we have these extremes. And one of the extremes around doing life together is idealism. And it's really believing in a flawless version of community where no one gets hurt and everyone shows up all the time. And how many of you know that sounds good in our head, but that's not really accurate. That's not actually how it plays out. Unfortunately, us as people, we're cloners. We want to clone people into our image. We want to clone churches into the image we think it needs to be. We want to clone community, and we have all these ideas, this idealism that we bring to the party. And then there's romanticism around this thing. What does doing life actually mean? Romanticism in this context is expecting community to be full of emotional connection, emotional highs, and spiritual breakthroughs every week. Romanticism around this concept of doing life together. And then there's disillusionment. These are three extremes around this concept. Disillusionment is the inevitable crash that comes when real people don't live up to the dream you have of doing life together. And then you're hurt because of that biases. Now, side note, there's church hurt. I really don't even like to call it church hurt. I mean, this is another buzzword. People get hurt when they hang around people in different communities, no matter what that community is. And in those communities, the hurt can be validated. It's valid. They hurt you, they're wrong. Regardless, we got to forgive them and move on, right? But they could be validated, or it could be because of our cognitive biases on the way we see things. You guys understand that? And disillusionment around this fact of doing life together can set in. And then we actually blame the community we're in and say, the community failed me, when actually your fantasy did. Think about that. Your fantasy of what this actually means. And so these are extremes. These are things that happen. We chase a dream, or we chase a version of community that's not reality. And when the real community shows up, we miss it. And I really feel like that's a ploy of the enemy. And that's kind of why we're talking about this today. What does community look like in reality? I want to share some quick stats with you. I want to share some stats with you about this, because when we talk about community, we talk about time. I'm going to do this real quickly. This is not absolutely empirical data. However, it's going to hit around the mark of this. So time, there's about 168 hours in every week. And there's some non-negotiables when it comes to our time. Basic life demands like sleep, right? Work, we got to go work. We got to commute every day, back and forth. And man, the traffic's bad these days. There's personal care and hygiene for some of us. You like that? See, I told you we're going to try to create a culture that we like to laugh in church, by the way. So if you come from a church that doesn't laugh, I'm sorry. We're going to laugh today. And it doesn't mean we're not spiritual. It actually probably means we're more spiritual. Anyways, now. Then, am I throwing some bombs already? I'm sorry. By the way, I'll say this as well, because you have critics. We love every church around here. We don't have the corner on the market. We're just real people trying to do it right here at Northwood Church. So this is what we're doing. Then there's cooking and eating, or eating for some, not cooking for others. That's 129 hours a week. That's just basic necessities. You know what I mean? I don't know how long you sing songs in the shower or brush your teeth. It could be longer, right? And then some of you, as family and kids and life rhythms, you have kids' activities like ball field. You got to go play ball, got to go do things, go to school, shows, and all those type of things that you do with kids. Then there's time with your family at home, where you're actually going to talk to your kids and say, how are you? You know what I'm saying? And then there's extended families, grandmas and grandbabies. And I got a grandbaby now, everybody. Her name is Ivy. Shout out to Ivy. She's not watching now, but anyways, she's just going, And so there's time we spend with those. That's another 20 hours a week. Now we're at 89% of our week already. So, I'm really cutting through the myth of really what doing life together is. Then there's just coming to church, right? Sunday morning service, about an hour and a half, right? For some, it's longer for those who are serving and doing things like that. 30-minute drive time, something around that. Then there's small group, another about an hour, hour and a half. There's some drive time there. There's an occasional meeting or team meeting or whatnot. And now that's just 3% of your week that you're able to invest and be a part of. So what does this actually mean? Well, doing life together is not necessarily about quantity, It's about intentionality. And that's what we have to realize. And I know there's variations, and there's just a big scope of things, but there's variations and all that. You don't need 40 hours with people to form meaningful community. And when we talk about community, really it comes from a word, a Greek word in the New Testament, koinonia, which is translated in English fellowship. And so you see this word fellowship of the saints, fellowship with other believers all throughout the New Testament. Matter of fact, it's mentioned about 20 times. Like in the book of Acts, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship. 1 John says, but if we walk in the light, we have fellowship with one another. Philippians says, because of your partnership, or koinonia, fellowship, in the gospel, we move things forward. And so really the big idea is you can't do life with everyone, but you can walk closely with a few. And that's really one of our core values is community here at Northwood Church. We value community, and we define it this way. Community is people united by a faith in Christ and a love for one another. And that's two sides of the coin that really makes a Christ-centered community. And that's fellowship, and that's what we do, and that's what the opportunity we have to do with one another. And when that happens, when that fellowship happens, guess what happens? Hebrews talks about it in chapter 10. It says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together or have community together, as is in the habit of some, which shows you've got to create a habit to continue to do this, spiritual habits, but encouraging one another all the more as we see the day approaching. And so this is the heartbeat of the local church, that in that 3 to 5% window, unless you're retired, right? You can have those intentional moments to have community, right? Because we're not saved into isolation, we're saved into a family. And it's called the family of God. And we're joined together because of Christ. So let me give you a definition now, sum it all up, of doing life together. So doing life together is living in authentic, committed community in a way that strengthens faith, builds relationships, and supports emotional well-being. And one of the ways we accomplish that is through our small groups here at Northwood Church. As a matter of fact, next Sunday, we're kicking off our fall semester of groups, and we're excited about that. Yeah. And so what we're going to do today, again, a little bit different. We're going to ask our panelists to come on up, and we're going to just share some raw truths about what this value we have, community, does in our local church. So you guys come on up. Let's give it up for our panelists, everybody. Yeah. Appreciate that, Carlos. Now, these panelists, you know, I'm a sink or swim guy, right? Swim or drown or whatever it's called. Throw you out into the ocean, and if you can float, you're going to live. So I text them about 5 a.m. this morning and said, hey, you're going to be on the stage today. I've got some puke buckets in the back. It's going to be all right. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. They know that they were going to do that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get started.
Yeah, my name is Matt Petrie. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Maddie. Over here, we've got 2 kids, John Michael and Jackson. They're in the nursery and kids' church. We've been coming here to Northwood for about 4 or 5 years and been plugged into small groups for about 2 years.
Come on.
My name is Brandon Swanger. I'm also here with my beautiful wife.
You like that?
Yes. Dawn, and my 2 daughters, Sophia and Stella. And we have been, we found Northwood Church our home for probably 13 plus years.
Awesome.
All right, and my name is Miranda Smith. I am a chiropractic assistant as well as a photographer. I have been coming to Northwood for about 7 years, and I am also a youth leader, and I am coming into 4.5 years of being with our youth.
Come on, that's great. Good. Yeah, come on, give it up for them, everybody. These are your panelists today, and I appreciate that, Matt. I mean, I can't let this one go while we're getting points. Man, I got a beautiful wife sitting on the front row.
He had to.
Carrie, there you are. Appreciate you so much. That's not the message anyway, but thank you guys. Again, see, this is just a practical example of we can encourage one another to be better husbands in the context of community. You see how this is working? It's already working today. So talking about our core value community and doing life together, we're going to put up question number 1, and it's this: were there any hurdles you had to overcome before saying yes to joining a group? Matt?
Yes, I had probably 3. The first one would be, do I really want to meet new people? I think for us as men, we go, man, do we really want to have other guys we got to talk to? And like, is it going to be weird? We need men to walk alongside us, aside of us. 2, to that question, is it going to be weird? Find your people. I mean, that's probably the words of encouragement I would use. But 3, and you've hit on this already, is time. Especially for men, we always say we're busy. If we're all going to be honest, we have time to make time, prioritize this time, because you're talking about that 3%. That 3% that we put in could drastically impact that 97. That's some ROI.
Wow. Dude, that is a great point, man. I'm going to use that one day. That is awesome. Man, you know, you talked about time, Matt. I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. So share with us the moment for you, maybe you and your wife, you know, so the moment before you went into a group for the first time, man, how long were you like in the church before you decided to make that leap? What did it look like behind the scenes internally? Maybe you as a man, maybe not even talking to your wife, maybe then talking to your wife. Man, we keep hearing about these things called groups. I'm not sure. To the moment that, you know, you got the invite, kind of bring us on that journey.
Yeah, we probably, attended probably 2 years, and we really liked Northwood, but we were the first ones in, or we were the last ones in, the first ones out. And y'all had a church on the grounds, and my wife was like, we're going to this. And I was like, do we really have to do that? Like, we're going to talk to people? She's like, we're going. So we go out, and then actually as Pastor Jordan walked up, and it's like, hey, I've seen you around. And that really just kind of, for me, was the door that opened for me to feel comfortable, and we started to get plugged in. And I would say our walk with God, but then 2, our interactions within the church drastically changed. And that's when we got plugged into small groups.
Yeah, so you said you came late, left early? Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Now we come early, and we're like the last ones to leave.
Come on.
The lights are on. They're like, hey, y'all got to get out of here. But it's been really good.
Man, that's powerful. So, that changed for you, like you said, coming early and staying late. And almost you're kind of describing, man, ownership. You're kind of describing it's not their church anymore, it's my church.
Correct.
And so did that happen? How long did that, tell us the process a little bit when as you started feeling that ownership, if you would, that this is my church, in the process of doing life together and getting in a group. Was that a progression? Did that just show up? What did that look like?
I would say it was like you build on it each week. Used to we'd wake up and go, hey, we're going to go to church today. It's like, what time are we going to get there? It's almost like a non-negotiable. So I would say our walk just gradually kept getting better and better and better, more as we plugged in. That's what I would say.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. Brandon.
Well, my mind comes to isolation and versus growth. Isolation, we can all play off our insecurities, so we can always talk ourselves out of doing whatever it may be. We'll let it get the best of us. But if you don't embrace the growth and get plugged in, example, you get into a group and you get there and you find that you're around people such as yourself, probably nervous, wondering what they're doing there, or it just clicks and you say to yourself, wow, this is really working. But the growth aspect of it, once you leave and you feel God's presence, and just knowing that you took that first step is just a great feeling.
Yeah, so you talk about isolation. Obviously, we're not isolated because we go in our community, we go to work, we see people, we have family at the house. But when it comes to the context of fellowship, when it comes to the context of plugging in, if you would, into the community of believers, What did that look like for you when it comes to being isolated from that? And do you remember what really caused you or convicted you to be able to make that first step from isolation into more than just attending, if you would, to a group?
Yeah. Well, of course, the isolation, you're in your little comfort zone, but you realize that you're not growing. You're not. You can come to Sunday services and be present, but till you get plugged in and put yourself in a group, you really open up the opportunity to grow. I was just talking earlier to Pastor Van. I like to use his example. I think what really resonated with me was he had mentioned a few times, we don't want to be babies all our lives. We don't want to eat baby food all the time. And I thought, as a grown man, I want to be a leader of my house, and I definitely don't want to eat baby food. So, I found myself plugging in, getting involved, be the man of the house, be the example.
Yeah.
So that was really my nudge into it.
Yep, and I appreciate that baby food reference because I'm going to use that too. Now, Miranda.
For me, I was flooded with questions of insecurity. Will they like me? Will I like them? Will I understand the questions? Will I know the answers? And of course, I feel like as humans, we go to all those questions.
Yeah, so obviously, we have a predisposition a lot of times for, we'll call it faith versus fear, okay? We have a predisposition for fear. We're taught to be fearful. We're trained to be fearful. We're not trained to be faith-filled people. And so we're tempted to live in that fear. So tell us a little bit about how you broke through that insecurity internally as going into a new environment, because you had to face your insecurity. Give credit where credit due, Pastor Van here. By the way, if you don't know Pastor Van, he was our former senior pastor. Let's give it up for Pastor Van. We love him. Just wanted to say that because some of you might not know Pastor Jordan's dead. And he said faith always faces facts. And so faith sometimes faces the fact that we're insecure. So tell us, unpack that a little bit for us when it comes to faithing through that insecurity. Can you remember that moment, maybe driving to group? What was your prayers like to get past that first wall?
So for me, I really had to sit down with myself and sit there and look through what were all the negatives, what I was thinking, but then also had to, what if all those turned into positives? What if I do like them? They do like me. I do learn to understand that so I can grow in just what I was on fire to learn, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to have those things that my heart was desiring until I stepped into the unknown and joined a group.
Yeah, that's good because, when you talk about listing pros and cons, it's like, what if God could do this? What if this turned out? What if this turned out different than the way I'm thinking it? And so that's a pivotal moment for you to go ahead and make that next step of your faith. When we talk about community, a lot of these answers, if you would, had to deal with growth. I love what Proverbs says when it says that iron sharpens iron as another man or another woman sharpens another one. And so that kind of brings us to the next question, which is number 2, and it's, can you share how you've seen spiritual growth in your life from being in a group?
Yeah, I would say this last group, I actually did the Titus 10. That's what we did in our small group. And I was really struggling with identity, and we hit, I would say probably the top 3 things that we discussed was character, identity, and dominion. And what did that look like from a Christ-like man? And it was really, for me, just realigning to that. It helped me become, I feel like, a better husband, a better friend, a better coworker, really prioritizing the things in my life how it needed to be.
Yeah, he mentioned Titus 10, which a lot of our men's groups are going to be Titus 10. It's a 10-week study in one of the lanes in our groups, a study group. We'll talk a little bit more about the different lanes at the end of this service. But unpack that a little bit for us, because you really zeroed in on some key components there. You talked about identity. You talked about realignment. So can you recall maybe what was happening to you as you guys were going through Titus 10 and some of the internal shifts that were taking place in your life through this past semester?
Yeah, I think a lot of times for men, we can get wrapped up in work. Other things for me was work. I was finding my identity in something other than Christ, and I really didn't have peace. That was the big thing. And so going through it, and I really didn't understand what I was feeling. I just knew that something was out of balance. And I was talking to my wife about it. She's like, just, get into the group and, we'll see what happens. And, I think it was probably the second or third week we talked about identity, and I was like, that's it. And when I got myself realigned back to finding my identity in Christ, a lot of the things that I was worried about, I'm in sales, so it's am I going to get this sale? Am I going to hit my numbers? Do I still, worry about that? Maybe a little bit. It doesn't consume me like it used to. And so now I truly have peace.
Man, that's powerful. Matthew 6:33 says, seek first the kingdom of God, and all these other things that we strive for, will be added to us. But when you say that your identity changed, what's one big shift, practical shift that changed for you, maybe at home, at work, where you really, all of a sudden, there was something different?
I would say for me, it's when I'm going out, I'm praying more and just saying, hey, God, use me. If this isn't where I'm supposed to be, make a change. Do something in me. So it's just really surrendering to God daily.
Thanks for sharing that. Brandon, how about you?
My mind goes to accountability and discipline. I find myself being more or held accountable when being in a group. If it requires me to be there during an X amount of time, I'm there to support my friends that I've developed. It also helps me stay spiritually consistent. And I have the prayer support through the friends I've gained. I used an example earlier that the season of my life, I've got 2 teenagers, so I have a lot of questions.
Let's pray for him right now, everybody.
A lot of questions. I'm fortunate enough that a lot of people that are in my group have the same age children, or have maybe are just now empty nesters. So I'm able to get that guidance that I need. Because we all question our abilities as parents if we're doing the right thing or not. So it's good to have that Christ-like mindset to know that you're getting the support.
Yeah, and talking about accountability, obviously it's one of those words that people have different views on, but you said it. You said just showing up was a form of accountability for me, just being faithful. And so when you talk about accountability and getting prayer, maybe can you share a little bit about a moment that kind of led up to that, where you felt like through that accountability and showing up, you really received ministry in that moment, and something kind of changed for you and helped?
Well, we all get busy in our daily lives and throughout the work week, and your work may distract you, and you're like, I just don't have time tonight, or whatever it may be. But when you do get there and you zone all the negativity out, all the daily things, and you zone that out, and you really spend that quality time. There's been incidents where we've bounced things off of our group friends, and you get those answers, and you leave, and you're like, I'm really glad I carved out that hour. It was really needed, and I could have made 1,000 excuses, but you leave spiritually connected, you feel revived, and you're glad you did it. It's much needed.
Yeah, and I've heard that story over and over again, even for myself. Didn't really feel like coming, right? Didn't really feel like coming to church. Definitely don't feel like going to group. You know what I mean? Let's go somewhere else. Let's do something else. I don't want to do it. but through spiritual disciplines, I'm gonna do it. And I can't tell you time and time again that breakthrough has come just showing up. Maybe some of you are like that today, and you just showed up, and man, that makes a big difference when we just show up. Miranda, tell us about you.
I would say it helped with my confidence. It allowed me to grow in understanding and that I was able to just live out my life in confidence that I can walk in faith in my daily life. That's not just only being around Christ-like individuals, but also that I have Christ with me in every moment.
Yeah, building our faith to live it out. And a lot of times our faith is built in a group where we're able to share what God is doing in our life in more, let's just call it a safe zone with Christ followers or those who are pursuing Christ versus sharing your faith in a world where there's critics and where there's doubters and where there's haters and where there's people who are hurting and they have no hope. And, there's that insecurity. And you said, being in a group really helped you live your faith out loud. Tell us maybe about that, what that looked like for you in the marketplace, where after being in a group for a little while, you really, the word of God tells us that God gives us boldness to share the gospel. So maybe share a little bit about that, maybe from being in a group and how that looked, where you're maybe a little more bold to share your testimony or share your faith with other people.
So I work at a chiropractic office, and I believe groups have given me the confidence to just be bold while I'm at work. I'm no longer scared to invite people to church or tell them about groups or anything. I was actually in an appointment this past week, and I was talking with this individual, and I was like, you know what? I think you should go to this website, gave him like a full list of like northwood.church, get involved, groups. And I was like, I think Freedom would be a really good group for you. And so it gave me the confidence and just the boldness to be able to be calm in those moments.
Yeah, and you really hit on a word. The word's really equipping. And so being in a group of people following Christ, we are equipped when we equip one another. And, when Jesus sent out his disciples, right, he never sent them out by themselves. He sent them out in twos and threes and such. And so I think that really ties into the Great Commission in Matthew 28, where it says, go into all the world and preach the gospel, and the end will come. And so being in a group really has equipped you to be able to share your faith and to invite others to church and tell them about Jesus. And so that's what groups do. And let's get to the next question. This is a good one. Question number 3. How have you grown in relationships with other people since joining a group? Matt?
Yeah, so in our group, I feel like we have a really tight group of guys now. I mean, I remember after like the first week, somebody starts opening up, and everything in the group stays within the group. And and especially for guys, I mean, we put on a good shell, and we're like, all right, I don't have any issues. But then once that shell gets kind of broken and you see other guys going through the same stuff you are, you start sharing, and you're like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And so I don't throw this out flippantly, I feel like it's like a brotherhood. We've got great guys in our group, and it's really, I would say, grown our relationships. But I feel like when you know yourself and you know that you're not alone, you can really be a rock for somebody else.
Yeah, that's good. So what is one thing that happened in group, because you kind of talked about it, vulnerability, in relationships. And so, being in a group and being able to be vulnerable takes trust. We know trust is earned, not given, and trust takes time. And in order to have a good group, you have to be trustworthy as well. What was a moment maybe that you can describe where the wall of vulnerability kind of opened, or the wall of kind of wearing a mask was broken and vulnerability was kind of released? How did that look like in group dynamics where, you're sitting in a group? How did that actually start cultivating?
I would say we just got real. I don't know if that's like the correct term, but probably the second week, somebody was like, I'm struggling with this. And everybody went, me too.
Wow.
It was powerful. A frog jumped up and got me, but
That's all right. You can cry. Bring him a tissue.
My wife's like, he does it all the time. But it's things that mean a lot. I mean, this groups, I think getting into it, if I'm going to be vulnerable here, I was like, okay, a group, I'll just check it off the box. But it's meant a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it may take a few times to find the right group. It may not just fall in your lap on the first one. It may take 5. But I can attest to what Matt's saying is that once you do find that right group and everything starts meshing, the next thing you know, you find yourself on road trips with these individuals, and you're growing more and more, and you said it earlier, we're just normal people trying to do life, and we want to put on this polish, but when the polish goes aside, next thing you know, you're sitting there sharing stories and you're getting Christ-like counsel. It's all about stepping out there and getting the like-minded people in your life, getting that life or the Christ-like counsel that you need. You just don't want to find someone who's going to throw out something you want to hear. You really want to have that Christian-based counsel.
Absolutely. Miranda?
For me, it's something that I look forward to now. At the beginning, it was like, oh my goodness, okay, work myself up to this. And now to the point, it's something that I look forward to each week. It's not just a meeting that I show up and check off. It is something that I look forward to, and it's where I can be with other people who show up, they support, and just individuals that I can go along life with and share those ups and downs, those wins and burdens.
Yeah, true friendships. I want to zero in on something real quick when we talk about growth. And you hit on it, Brandon. You talked about accountability, and the scriptures just flood my mind when you guys are talking, because everything you're saying is biblical, and we might not have the perfect verse and the reference, but what came to my mind is that in a multitude of counsel, there's safety. And when you wage war for victory, you need many advisors. And, you talked about that when it comes to being surrounded by people who are trying to follow the blueprint we're following, which is the Bible. And when we have that around us, there's safety in that. And so I think that when we think about community and doing life together, and in our context here at Northwood Church, obviously we're talking about small groups, I think that there is safety in that. And you hit on it in trust, and there's safety in that. And side note, there's no perfect community. We always say here, old school saying is, this is a gossip-free zone. Yes. And we know that there's gossipers because we're in a community of people. And so if you're a gossip, it's time now to stop gossiping. Come on. It's not what our groups are for. I just wanted to say that. And so we are cultivators of the groups we belong to. It's not just the group leader, it's not just the pastor. When we show up to cultivate that culture in order to create a safe space for ministry to take place, And so when we talk about accountability and we talk about all the wonderful things in a group, really what we're talking about is ownership. When was that moment, Matt, that maybe you can remember even getting into groups where you said that basically, I'm not saying that you said it just like this, where it's not that church or their church, it's my church, and you became a cultivator?
I would say when we got plugged in, you feel an ownership to that. You're walking alongside life with people, and you feel connected. There's something palatable about that. Like when we were coming here for 2 years, we liked everything, but we still felt like a little bit of an emptiness. Once we got plugged in, it's our church. We know these people. We want to invite other people to our church. And so I think that's what it was for us.
Yeah, I think that's a huge shift, because I think everything changes when we take ownership for God's kingdom. And we know that his kingdom is played out in the context of fellowship. The Bible calls the church the ecclesia, the called out ones. Now we have a structure and we have AC here, thank God, but we are the called out ones. And when we take responsibility to be a part of that, every member has a part to play. The New Testament talks about that on and on and on. So what would you say? This is our next question. What would you say then for someone who's never been in a group and who feels hesitant about jumping in?
I would say just do it. I mean, short and sweet. It's worth it. It's made a huge impact in my life, and I think it'll do the same for you.
Come on, just do it. Absolutely. I got
It's like your shirt, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Little Nike plug right there.
The Nike plug. How about you, Brandon?
I would say really lean in. Don't let your insecurities get the best of you. I'm a big fan of watching these CEOs and these people that supposedly have made it, and they're always really encouraging and going outside the box and seeking the best. And that's what I try to encourage myself to do, is to, I want to be a leader of my family. I want them to see me lead by example. So, just get plugged in. I guarantee you'll find growth in it. You can't do it alone. I've tried. Doesn't work. But once you really lean in, and you'll feel it. You'll see it.
Miranda?
It would be, you don't have to perform, you don't have to put on that mask that we always tend to do on a daily basis, and you don't have to be spiritually perfect. Just be willing, be there, because God will show up. Because yes, you're going there for you, but you also might be going there for someone else as well through your testimony.
That's right. I'm going to play off of what you just said right there, because, you can, I don't know how long you've been a Christ follower. Maybe you're new in your faith. Maybe you're old in your faith. But sometimes, you can get to the place it's like, I don't really need group. Honestly, I can read that book. I can do this. I understand that scripture. I can finish the pastor's sentence, if you would. But yet everything changes when you realize that group is not all about me. And I think some of the greatest growth is when the student becomes the teacher. And I really feel through my years of training and my years of being led by example and my years of being in the group, some of the greatest growth in my life ever, over seminary courses, over Sunday morning sermons, over group life, is when I started leading other people. And when I started realizing that I'm showing up not for me, I'm showing up for them. And the amazing thing about ministry is that when you pour out, God pours in. And it's a beautiful picture. So I got a bonus question for you that you brought that up. It's not going to be on the screens, but here's a bonus question. What helped you take the step from being in a group to leading one?
So for me, it was being involved in groups. I was involved in groups for a while, and then having one of my leaders was like, hey, so would you like to be a leader for our youth? And I was like, me? Really? Like, what do you see that I don't see? So it was me putting that aside, surrendering that, and realizing that I wanted to be the person that I needed for these youth that I didn't have when I was their age.
Exactly. People help call out the gifts and the callings that's in us. And without people, we don't have that. And that's what community does. That's why, guys, this is why we continue to do small groups. By the way, as leaders in the church, as pastors, man, if we didn't have this, if we didn't have these stories, if we didn't have this reality, then let's go home. You know what I mean? But that's not the reality. The reality is that God impacts us through fellowship, through community, and through what we do here, which is groups. Let's give it up for our panelists, everybody. Come on, guys. Yeah. Thank you, guys. It's fantastic. I couldn't have done a better job. But I want to share a little bit about our groups just for a moment before we close here today. And really, we're going to go through these. I'm going to have them on the screens. I'm just going to read them. And these are actually the different, what we would call lanes of groups or types of groups that we have in our church. Also, you'll see a QR code there that you can scan, and it'll bring you to our group's landing page. And on there, you'll select your location. Then you can see all the groups. I'm going to read through these, and then we'll conclude and pray and go home. So the first one is freedom groups. And we always got a bunch of freedom fans in here. So, hey, I hear you. So they're about letting go of the past and walking forward in truth of who you are in Christ. The group wraps up with a one-day freedom conference on November 15th. And so if you have been in freedom before and you want to come back to the conference, you can do that. If you've never been to freedom, you can't go to the conference or Freedom Day conference until you go through freedom. And so it's just a very, very powerful day that we end the semester on. Then there's foundations class, and this is to help you learn the foundational doctrines and spiritual disciplines every believer needs to flourish in their faith journey. We're going to be doing that Wednesday night here. I've got some men that's going to be helping lead that with me here on Wednesday nights. Then we have study groups where you walk through a book of the Bible or a life topic. These groups are there to help you grow stronger in your understanding and your walk with Christ. And so we actually have some new study groups that we're starting this semester. You kind of been hearing about them for the last month. And the first one's the art of marriage. And this is for couples who want to grow closer and strengthen their relationship God's way. You'll learn how to deepen your communication, your connection, and your commitment. Then we also have the art of parenting. And this helps parents guide their children with wisdom, love, and biblical truth, shaping identity, character, and purpose with Christ at the center. We're going to be doing that on Sunday nights, by the way. And childcare will be available for you, where you'll be able to sign up and pay a childcare fee. Man, I tell you, raising kids is hard. And if you want some tools, I want to highly encourage you to join the art of parenting. Then we have Freed Up. And it's a financial study built on God's principles designed to help you earn, give, save, and spend with purpose. Freed Up is actually an application that you can put on your mobile device. And it's a company, if you would, that does nothing but finances faith-filled. Kind of like, everybody heard like of Dave Ramsey or something like that? This is similar to that Freed Up curriculum. It comes with an application, a budgeting software and all that. The fee is $99. It's not $99 to us. It's to Freed Up. And somebody say, wow, $99. That's a lot of money. It is if you just don't drink Starbucks for a month or two, you'll be okay. Maybe turn off Netflix, not go to the gas station every time you want some food. I don't know, right? I say the gas station. It's a sure way. I was talking to a young man last week, and I was talking about his budget. He's like $300 a month on gas station food. Anyways, but maybe some of you, you're really drowning. And you would say $99. I'm not going to the gas station. For sure, I'm not going to Starbucks. I'm just barely trying to pay my bills. Well, if that's you and you say, I really want to be a part of Freed Up, I want you to go to the next steps area at the end of the service, put down your name and your information. We want to help you out. We want to try to make that available for you and try to help you out with the fee. Yeah, some of your giving goes to that. And then also, some of you might be doing financially really well and you want to be a donor and you want to help somebody get into Freed Up. Man, give us your name and your number right after church in the next steps area. Then, of course, we have Titus 10. Matt gave a really good plug for Titus 10. I'm going to be going through Titus 10 this semester with some of my guys. It's a men's study that equips guys to lead with integrity, grow in godly character, and live out their faith boldly in everyday life. Then we have Growing Slow. It's a women's curriculum. We kind of had a women's night a few weeks back, and part of that night was based on this curriculum, and some of the women are going to be going through this. It's a study for women who are tired of the rush and ready to embrace God's pace. I think I want to sign up. Anyways, discover how to grow deep roots in your faith without striving or stress. And then we have our student groups, and student groups are ages 6th grade to 12th grades, and students from all locations, all 4 of our locations, meets at our Gulfport location here at 5 p.m. to discuss topics that matter to their everyday lives. And actually, our student guys are going to be going through Titus 10 this semester. I think that's awesome, man. I think that's really, really cool. And then we have hangout groups, last but not least. They're pretty self-explanatory. We build friendships and community through shared interests. And so that's a little bit about our groups. I do want to just take a quick moment, and we're almost finished here. I want to take a quick moment, and let's give it up for all of our small group leaders who help make this happen every single semester. You guys are awesome. You really are. You guys are awesome. And some of you, God has maybe convicted you to maybe lead. And so I encourage you to talk to your group leader this semester and become a trainee. We have a trainee program, then you can be a co-leader, or you can lead after that. And so I want you to do that. But then also I want to speak to you who really maybe feel like you're in the valley of decision, and perhaps you are like Matt and you've been coming here for a couple years and you're like, you're here early. Man, you're here late, you leave early. And I was talking to this group of people in our panelists in the back room there as we were preparing for this in between services. We kind of debriefed from the previous service, talked about what went well, what we can maybe try to do a little bit better. And one of the things we were talking about is that we would picture somebody in the seats that maybe doesn't have this community. They don't have this fellowship that we talked about. And I'm here to tell you that one step of faith into the fellowship of the believers through the context of small groups can change an entire family. Yes. Can change an entire family. First group I ever was a part of, I was the youngest guy. Everybody was old folks. Really wasn't that compatible because I was a young guy, but I had just gotten saved. I was 23 years old. And my parents were in that group. And I've shared this before, I'm just going to say it again. My parents were in that small group, separated. But through that context of groups, I was being discipled. My mom and dad, they moved back in together. Come on, somebody. And God did a work in our family through the context of fellowship.